Hello, everyone. My name is Jeremy Morton. I'm the CEO and founder of Expert TA. I am joined now with Courtney Raymond, the OpenStax marketing manager. We really appreciate everyone taking the time and having the interest to join today. We've got a lot of interesting material to share with you about strategies for academic integrity, especially in the age where many of you are still offering not only homework, but exams in an online capacity. And so hopefully we're going to give you a lot of information that you find beneficial as we go through the course of the next hour. I want to go into immediately the agenda for today. We're going to have a brief overview of OpenStax. I'm going to hand it off to Courtney in just a minute to do that. We're going to come back over and I'm going to provide a background of Expert TA. We're going to talk about the main ways that students cheat and strategies that you as instructors can guard against those. We're also going to offer up a free offline tool that we have designed and can make available to you to help out with this across any platform. We're going to give a brief tour of the Expert TA system and talk about how we've incorporated some of these features into our online platform. And we're going to go over a preview of our problem authoring tool, because in online exams specifically, most instructors insist on having their own material. And of course, as always, we'll leave some time at the end for questions from the audience and some frequently asked questions. Okay, at this point, I am going to hand things off to Courtney so that she can talk about OpenStax. I'm going to make you the presenter now.
Great, so thanks, Jeremy. Yes. All right. You guys should see my screen now. Does that look good, Jeremy?
It does.
Okay, great. You guys may hear a little background noise on my end. Please excuse me. But as Jeremy mentioned, my name is Courtney Raymond. I'm from OpenStax, which is an OER publisher based at Rice University, a 501c3 nonprofit. And I'm here presenting with Jeremy because we've been partnered with Expert TA since the beginning, pretty much the beginning of our existence. So we publish textbooks for the highest enrolled undergraduate courses, and they're available completely free online. So they go through the same peer review process and quality standards as traditional textbooks, but they're openly licensed, which means that instructors can remix, reuse, revise, and redistribute them. And this is just a look at our reach. So this is for this school year. We've estimated that students have saved a cumulative $1.2 billion on textbooks by being offered an OpenStax book as their primary text. This says 42 textbooks, but since this graphic came out, we actually have published another. So we're at 43 books available and counting. 3.8 million students have used this year. We're at 60% of institutions in the US and in over 100 other countries. And we have 36,000 instructors using our books. I wanted to talk a little bit more in depth about our physics offerings for higher ed, so which Expert TA has integrated in their platform. So to start off with, we have college physics. This was our first book. We published it in 2012. It was created for the 2-semester algebra-based physics course. And then we also have adaptations for high school and for advanced placement, if that pertains to you. And we also have a calculus-based volume. So university physics is available in 3 volumes. It was published in 2016. And we are actually working on a Spanish translation of this one later in the year, which will be available. And there may be additional Spanish translations of physics in the future, but I'm not sure of the plans at this point. Our books are available in multiple formats, so you can find whatever works best for you and your students, or each one of you can use the format that you need. So this is a zoom into our book page, but you can do an in-browser version, which is reflowable. We have the books available in an app. You can download a static PDF. You can order a print copy at close to cost, or you can use a free Kindle version if you prefer that way. And then each book also comes with... Yeah, sure.
I hate to interrupt you. I'm not able to see the full slide on the page from my end.
Oh, yes. Okay. How strange.
There you go.
I can see your view now. Can you see this one? Okay, thank you so much. So sorry about that, you guys. Each Each book does come with free ancillaries. They're locked, so you just have to create a free instructor account at openstax.org to access them. So these books in particular come with instructor solution guides, PowerPoint slide decks, concept trailer videos, and LMS cartridges for Canvas and Blackboard. And then, as I mentioned, we partner with learning technology companies like Expert TA. So Expert TA offers low-cost, high-value options to support instructors and students beyond the content. So we call them an OpenStax ally. And so they really enrich our material and also provide financial support in exchange for using that content that we keep updated. And their support helps to keep our books current and accessible for our students. So we update them on an ongoing basis. They're always up to date. We only do new additions when pedagogically necessary. And our partnership with Expert TA is an essential part of that whole ecosystem that allows us to maintain that content. And just as a last little note, if you're looking for more information on Expert TA and their integration with our book, if you just go to one of our book pages and click on Instructor Resources, you'll see that list of technology partners. We actually just released a rating and review feature, so you'll notice that Expert TA has a 5-star rating on our site. You can see people's reviews from their experience with their platform. But Expert TA has always prioritized academic integrity, and this issue is especially urgent now in our digital learning environment. So I'm really excited that we're able to talk with them again today about this topic. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Jeremy.
Okay, great. Let me make myself the presenter again. Okay, great. Is everyone able to see my screen at this point? And the slide's fully on. Sorry about that, Courtney. I thought that it was just a limitation on the preview that I had of this. Okay, as I said, we're going to provide a brief background of Expert TA. I'm the CEO and founder. This is a product of my PhD research. My PhD was mechanical and aerospace engineering from North Carolina State. Wound up being my PhD dissertation, even though NC State did not have an engineering education program. I really lobbied to be able to do this work. And so this is just signifies the fact that I've really cared about this long before there was a company. Building great educational tools is certainly something that we are passionate about. I taught 9 years full-time at Oklahoma State University, and ultimately to do things the way that I wanted to do them, I started Expert TA as a company, and we've been growing since then. We launched in introductory physics in 2011, and we have expanded into additional subjects since then, but that's been our primary focus. Okay, there are a few main ways that students cheat, and we want to delve into those now. Some of these we have answers for, there's a few that we don't. And I've got the hardest one first, paying someone to take your class or your exam. First of all, this is a very expensive option for any student. It is difficult to deal with. It's much less common. The literature at this point estimates that it's less than 0.5%. 1 out of every couple of hundred students takes this route. This is not the most common form of cheating. There are things that you can do, but there are not things inside of the Expert TA system. We've picked our battles to be these other 2 items that we're going to present. So students working in groups while an online exam that is unproctored is being administered. They can do this through instant message, through Google Hangouts, text. They can be in the same place, the same apartment, working on the exam and sharing information. That's the primary way, number one. The other way that students are cheating these days is that they're posting questions online to be solved. Students take a picture, a screen capture of the problem. They post it up to one of many sites. Chegg is a common website for this. And unfortunately, solutions can be posted within 10 to 20 minutes, which makes this fast enough for it to be used on a timed assignment. What can you as an instructor do about these things? Again, the first one is the hardest, paying someone to take your class or your exam. You really need something like an online proctoring service. where an ID check, where the student shows an ID and there's a visual verification of their identity. Instructors that we've talked to also do things like follow up and have individual meetings or oral exams with students if they are suspected not to fully understand, where you can ask a student, please explain on problem number 4, you submitted this work, talk me through how you solved it. Those are some of the strategies that you could use for this particular type of cheating that students do. Going into where we can really help, students working in groups together. There's a time-tested strategy for this long before Expert TA, which is simply making different versions of the exam. It's an established practice, but it does include some logistics, and normally it's fairly limited. An instructor may have an orange, a blue, and a yellow version of the exam that they hand out. So you've got 3 different versions, and that way not every student has exactly the same problem. Expert TA, you're going to see when we get into the system, is able to do this to a much higher degree through question pools, creating far more variations and versions of an exam, and the logistics are removed because it's handled automatically. I should say that we're interested in describing here today to use strategies that can be used even if you don't use Expert TA or any other online homework system across any platform. And you're going to see these strategies in just a minute, but we also want to talk about how we've incorporated those into our own technology. Okay, for posting questions to the internet, the most powerful way to guard against this is to deter this by tracking. So what you can do is you can make each of your exam problems stand out by including wording that's very recognizable. We'll show you how you can do this. And then whether it's through Google or DuckDuckGo or Bing, you go and you search for your problem statements on your exam. If students have posted these problems to be solved, whether it's to Chegg or Yahoo Answers or to wherever else, you're going to see the results that are posted. And from the results, if you make these problems unique to each student through random numbers and random phrases, you're going to be able to take that information and find out which student made the posting and violated the rules. Now, if you've got a small enough class size, you may be able to do this without any technology at all. For example, if you have 15 or 20 students in your section, when you see that one of your problems has been posted, you can look at the values for mass or force 1, and you could flip through the stack of 20 exams for the different students and find out who it was. When you get into a section where you have 200 to 300 students or more, that becomes very time intensive and it's a lot of labor. So we've generated a free tool that helps you to do this. And also inside of the Expert TA system, we have features that make this turnkey. So then a big part of this is that you have to make sure that your students understand that you're doing this, and you also have to enforce penalties when someone violates. So at the very beginning, if you let students know, each of you have a unique version of the problem. I am searching for postings online, and we do see when someone posts to Chegg. We can track back to a specific student based on this. Students hear that, and it's something that they're not really able to work around. I've actually got a quote down here. We're used departmentally at University of Texas at Arlington, and this quote is from Dr. Andrew Brandt. He says, "We've seen a reduction in cheating over the past year to the point that they simply don't think that it's a factor anymore." It seems like it's a difficult problem to tackle, but this strategy, if you think about it, is very hard for students to deal with, especially on a timed assignment. If the problem that they post, wherever it is, Yahoo Answers or Chegg, if it's to be fully solved, it must include all of the different numbers. And that also is the information that can track back and lead to them. So how would they go about modifying that to where they can get a solution but not be caught? It really does put them into a catch-22. Okay, so at this point, let's take a look at our exam security page. and how to get access to the free tool. And then we're going to take a brief tour of our system. On the Expert TA website, here it is, under our products, there's a page dedicated to exam security, and there is a notice about our free offer. It is an Excel VBA-based tool that works for both PCs and Macs. And if you would like access to it, simply fill out this form and choose free randomization tool. And what you're provided with is an Excel form, wherein which you can type in a problem statement. You can create in small tables random values and give them a min, a max, and a step size, or create random phrases and give variations on the word or phrase. And you can also post in your roster. And when you do that, you can then run the program and it will generate a Word document for each student in your roster. And the numbers and the wording will be unique for every single student. That's step number one, so that if someone does post, it can be tracked back to an individual. And then the tool also includes a way when you find a posting for you to type in those numbers, and it tells you which student that is associated with. You can also find a lot of other good information on this page, outlining more of what you're hearing today, but perhaps at times in more detail about how students cheat on assessments, how instructors can guard against this. It gives a nice visual about different versions of the exam through our question pool feature. Talks about digital tracking mechanisms, some of which you're going to see today. So if any of your colleagues are interested in learning more about what you see today, we're going to make this recording of the webinar available. And then you also have this page that you can direct them to. Okay, so there's information on exam security and how to get the free tool. And at this point, we need to go into the system and take a brief tour. We are interested in presenting more than just the academic integrity safeguards that we have. We want to show you some of the educational benefits that we have, like hints and feedback for students as they're working problems and getting stuck, advanced grading and those kinds of things. And so you're going to see some of those as we walk through the system today. Okay, coming into the system now, this is the main Expert TA dashboard where either you as an instructor or students will arrive when you log in. The views are only slightly different. As an instructor, there's an area at the top that allows you to put additional class resources for your students that they can link away to. Down below, there's any assignments that are created and all of the information that's relevant, from the weight, the dates associated with the assignment. If you have a timed assignment, the number of minutes are shown. And then very important, we have the instructor grade preference template that's associated with this assignment. We're going to jump in and show you some of the customizations and flexibility that you have with grade preferences, because many of those do have to do with the exam security and academic integrity settings. At the top, underneath the main menu, under instructor, I have grade preferences. And so you're going to recognize a lot of things that you would have in any online system: the ability to change the number of tries that your students have, points that they would lose for putting in an incorrect answer, whether they have access to hints and feedback and deductions associated with those. So some of the features that we have are the implementation of randomized phrases and variables, and you want to make sure that you have these turned on in any sort of exam. We also have other features such as indicate if the submission is correct. Most of the time in an exam setting, you don't want students to even know whether their submitted answer was right or wrong, because they do happen to have the same problem as another student. They can't share that information. And there is also the ability to turn on for a specific assignment the Respondus lockdown browser. There's quite a bit of customization that can be made to assignments in general, including things like late work and partial credit. but this should give you an idea of the level of customization that can be done. When you first come in as an instructor, you're only going to have one template, instructor default, off to the side, but you can add as many templates as you want. You can name them something that's appropriate. Then as you click in between these templates, the form off to the right is going to look the same. It's just the parameters, the values inside of these fields that will change. We also have academic integrity preferences, and we'll just briefly talk about those. We make a syllabus recommendation to instructors. You need to make it clear to students on both homework and exams what is and is not allowed. You need to do that early, and you need to do it often. So please put something in your syllabus, talk with your students about this. And then as far as being able to do it often, you can turn on in Expert TA the honor code and class policies page that will be presented every time they open an assignment. Our terms of service, if you choose to present those, is written here. As far as the class policies, this is a text area that allows you to customize the language that will be presented to your students. And then finally, down below here, turning on in assignment deterrence. We highly recommend this for all assignments. This puts information inside of the problem that's personally identifiable. That means if students take a picture or screen capture and post it somewhere, that information can lead back to that student. You're going to see this in the context of taking an assignment in a few minutes, but this gives you an idea of where you can control those features. Okay, in a few minutes, after we go in and create an assignment and take it, we'll show you the randomized variables tracking functionality that we have that's built into our system. Okay, at this point, I'm going to go back to class management. Since this is something that you would do a lot as an instructor in Expert TA, creating an assignment, we want to show you what that experience is like. Looks like I have a homework 4 here in the stack, but I don't have a homework 5. So let's create that together. Under the main class menu in the upper right, I chose create class assignment. And here, I'm just going to make this homework 5. From this one screen, I can change everything that's important related to this assignment. The weight, I can choose the grade preference template. And for this, I'm going to choose homework so that we have more flexibility and I can show more of the learning features as we take an assignment. In most exams, you don't want students to know whether they got the right answer or not. Here, we're going to want to show the experience of putting in a wrong answer, seeing what feedback looks like when it's presented. And I'm going to do the same for the academic integrity template so that we aren't presented with a lockdown browser, which would not actually work with a GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar. So off to the right, we have the ability to change all of the associated dates with the assignment. The published date is the first time students even see it in their list. It's visible to them. Any work done between the start and the due date, students are going to earn full credit for. Any work between the due and the end date, they'll earn late work if the instructor allows that. And by default, these two dates are the same. Late work is not allowed unless the instructor explicitly adds time. You can see it's easy to create a timed assignment. And then down below here, you have the ability to add problems in. We've been told by all of our users that we really got this right. It feels nice and intuitive. We wanted it to feel like you're opening a textbook to the end of the chapter and you get to choose problems in a similar way. I want to show you, here I've got a book. I can choose between the particular collection I'm drawing problems from. And I'm in the very first chapter, which is Expert TA System Problems. We try to eliminate the number of emails that instructors get at the beginning of the semester with students not being aware of how to do a specific thing, like access their grade sheet or take an assignment. So we've designed these video-based questions where students get to watch the video that's at the top, and then they're asked questions down below that shows that they did look at the video and absorb that information. And again, you're going to get fewer questions from students when you incorporate these early in the semester. I'm going to include the one related to free body diagrams we would encourage you to put this in the first assignment that has that question type so that students can understand the interface that they have. Okay, and then after this, we don't have a lot of time to take a tour of the system. I'm just going to show you how you select problems, and we're going to do some from Newton's laws, and I'm going to show our FBD interactive gradable feature. So I'll choose the chapter. You can see that I have a number of sections here. Before I expand all, I'm going to choose a section that's dedicated to practice of free body diagrams. And I'm going to choose a problem that has a rotated coordinate system and net acceleration. So the student here would just be asked in any of these problems to practice drawing the FBD, but they're not going to be asked to put in equations or do calculations. If we do expand all, and then I should show the answers as well. If we do an expand all here, we do have those advanced question types, such as the free body diagram, but incorporated into multi-step problems. Now, let me show you what creating a question pool is like, because this is a strategy that we mentioned on an exam that would be very helpful. So for problem 1 and 2, all I did was click on those individual problems. And notice when I click on this, it's going to make it problem 3. But if I want to make this a question pool, I can simply click the radio button to the left of problem 3. And now as I add more questions, those are going to be added to that problem 3 bucket. And when the class takes this, about a third of the class would get each of these 3 problems. And there's nothing stopping you from creating a question pool with 6 or 7 options. It's completely up to you. And then when you want to add a new distinct problem, you click your radio button back up at the top and scroll down and find more problems that you like. So at this point, I should show that you can filter problems based on whether they explicitly involve calculus or not, or whether they're classified more as algebra or conceptual. You can also see that information appended onto the end of a given problem. This is an algebra-based problem, and it has a difficulty of 3. And so you can see the basics. We can't go into all the details because of the time constraints, but this should give you some idea of how you can create assignments in Expert TA. Many of you are going to want to author your own questions, and when you do that, your problems will simply show up as a second or third collection in your books dropdown. So here's an example of Texas Tech's 1403 materials, where they can draw for a given assignment from our main library, but then also pull questions from all of the custom materials for pre-tests and other things like that that they've created. Okay, at this point, I'm going to save and exit so that we can see what the experience is like to take this assignment. I'm not going to log out and log back in as a student. We'll just do this in the instructor environment. The two are almost identical. I'll show you the one difference once we get in here. So I have created another assignment here called Webinar Example. It's got a lot of these same problems in it, but this is the one that we'll go through and we'll take. Okay, this is the first problem. And as I mentioned, if you have an assignment that has our interactive free body diagram, it's good for that first assignment to include this problem. There's a 1 and 52-second long video that walks the students through every aspect of this interface, talks to them about how to add forces, move them around, what these pieces of information in the bottom left of the canvas tell them, and then ultimately all they're asked to do is go to about 1 and 35 seconds into the video and look at the answer that's presented and then reproduce that for themselves. This lets you know that they understand how to operate the free body diagram interface, and from this point forward, they can really just focus in on the physics. Okay, here's an example, and let me just zoom out just a little bit here. So here's an example of a drag and drop question type. And perhaps I zoomed out too far. Let me zoom back in and just move down. This is an energy diagram with a ball rolling down a hill. It looks like the image here at the top is maybe just a little big for this mocked up problem. So I'll zoom back into 100%. You can see that you've got an energy diagram where the kinetic and potential energy at a specific location is identified, and the student's job is to fill in the rest of the information. And they would use the draggable items from down below. This is a popular new question type that we're using very heavily that really helps to get at the introductory physics concepts. And so you're going to see a lot of that in our library, and you're also able to very easily create these question types. Okay, and now I'm going to zoom back in just a little bit further here and work this free body diagram question. So the interface is fairly intuitive for students. I can click to add a force. Notice that everything's going to respond in the rotated coordinate system. So the applied force F is, when I put it at an angle of 0, up the slope in the rotated coordinate system. And let me just add the forces I know that I'm going to need. We have a normal force that is going to be at 90. We have what's supposed to be, because the crate is accelerating, it's supposed to be F sub K to denote the kinetic friction, but I'm going to make a mistake and make that F sub S. And then we have the force of gravity. You see me use the drop downs over here to move forces along major axes, and you can also do that at 45-degree increments in between, but things don't always line up nicely. So you need to be able to, as a student, grab onto the end of a force and move it around. As you do that, you're going to see that sometimes it snaps to the 45 degrees or to the major axis, but in between, you'll get an arc and you'll get a symbolic angle, and it allows students to create something that is very similar to what they would draw on a piece of paper. And that was our primary goal. So now at this point, if I were to submit this, it's going to say that specific feedback is available, and it's telling us that the object is moving and wanting us to think about the frictional forces that should be considered. Let me fix this, but let me make a different mistake. Let me add in a force students really like to put in. We're going to put in the acceleration. We're going to put it up the slope. It is accelerating up the slope. Now when I click submit, we again have specific feedback, but it lets us know that there is no acceleration force and that acceleration doesn't really belong in the free body diagram in this way. So as students complete these, not only are they graded in an automatic fashion, but feedback is provided, hints are available, and it really gives them a learning experience if they're outside of an environment like office hours where someone can look over their shoulder and help them out. We're providing that kind of help to the student. And so then finally, I just want to show you that instructors can control this. It's a grade preference, whether you want the relative magnitudes in a free body diagram to be considered. I actually have that turned on. The crate is supposed to be accelerating up the slope. Even though I have all the forces in the right place, this does not communicate that this object is moving up. It looks more like it's weighted heavily towards down. And at this point, the feedback is going to indicate that the diagram is not proportional. Is the object accelerating, and if so, in what direction? Your diagram should communicate that. And finally, I can just get a correct answer here by rearranging and making those relative magnitudes something that looks right. Now you can see it's accepted as a correct answer. This is one of the features that we're very proud of in the system. Okay, but free body diagrams really only show up in a few different places. And so I want to show you at least one other question type, and that's going to be our symbolic question type. This is our next problem. Part A is asking for a free body diagram that's incorporated into a multi-step question. You've just seen this feature, so I'm actually going to skip this, but typically you would want students as a first step to draw the FBD and then base the sum of the forces in the X and the Y off of that. Okay, just really briefly, we have a very nice equation entry palette that helps to guard against syntax issues that students might have. And then we also provide a lot of feedback to students related to expressions as well. I'm just going to type in an answer that's not correct. Here we have what should be the right answer with this coordinate system, would be F2 cosine theta minus F1. I'm going to put in F2, a few extra parentheses, a sine theta instead of cosine, a 1 here that's going to wind up with an extra term, and then it should be minus F1, but I'm going to put plus F1. So if I click submit here, the feedback lets us know, please look at the angle and think about how that affects the trig. Please look at the coordinate system and think about how that affects the sine of each term. And then it also says it looks like you've got extra terms that aren't necessary. I hope that this is similar to what you would tell a student in office hours. I also really want to demonstrate that this is specific to the wrong answer that was put in. Many systems, what they call feedback, is just a static piece of information that doesn't change based on the incorrect answer. So if I were to put in something like F2 minus F1, where the student just fails to include trig altogether, and I click submit here, now it tells us you're being asked specifically about what's happening in the x direction. You need to break down your force into its x and y components. So it's targeted to the specific mistake. And then I've got a few tries left here. I'm going to put in the right answer, but I just want to show that our math engine is very robust. It should be F2 cosine theta. And I'm going to put this in, but using a trig relationship that's really complicated. So if I put in 1 minus sine squared theta, that's going to give a cosine squared theta. Divided by cosine, it's just F2 cosine theta. And then I'll put in plus F1 and then multiply by a negative 1, which should be accepted as a correct answer. We should interpret what the student means, even though it's not in the most simplified form. You can see the system does accept that, and the student winds up with a grade of 90 based on a few incorrect answers they submitted and access to hints and feedback. You as the instructor, if you'd like to make those deductions 0 for incorrect answers or hints and feedback, then they could wind up with 100 here, or they could wind up with something less. It's really up to you. Okay, it is important to me to briefly show you how much work that we've spent on, let me see if I can zoom in here just a little bit more, how much work that we've spent on that data mining of feedback and getting these specific responses in. And so I've got a problem here that's specific I want to pick out. It's problem 4318. We do this with all of our problems, but this is an example you're going to see in just a minute. So inside of the definition of this problem, it's a 5-part problem. You've got a basketball player that is shooting free throws. We have some examples of random words and random numbers. And then in part A, it asks the student to create an expression for the basketball's initial velocity vector. There's some hints. There's a correct answer. And then down below, we have all these anticipated answers students might put in. Credit, if they only had 1 try on this, on an exam, that would be appropriate. And then feedback. Where did this come from? We have tens of thousands of students all working expert TA problems. They're not always putting in a right answer on the first try. So we data mined and pulled out every wrong answer ever submitted for part A of this problem. We identified all the mathematically equivalent ones and sorted to find what was the most common wrong answer, what was the second most common, third most common, and these happen thousands of times. And so we take those 10 to sometimes 20 most common wrong answers, put them in front of college level instructors, and ask them to write feedback that they would tell a student in office hours. So here you can see your answer suggests the components are larger than the magnitude of the vector. This is non-physical. It's very clearly not just some computer generated feedback off of the math. It really hits on the concept. And this is a powerful thing that we've been doing. We do have the math detection, but it's always better if you can catch this first and have the feedback that's conceptual and written by a person. So the next time a student takes this problem, if they put in this anticipated answer, they're going to be presented with this much better feedback. And the way that I always think about it is, if you want to know what a student might do wrong on a problem, look at what 30,000 students already did wrong, and you've probably got a good idea. And so hopefully you can see that we have spent a lot of time on the positive aspects of education and helping students learn. The reality is that we have to deal with the academic integrity stuff, because no matter how good your educational exercise is that you build, if students are just getting the answers from somewhere else, it's not going to be a recipe for them mastering the concept. So we have to build an ecosystem and an environment that puts the right deterrents, puts the right carrot. It's a combination of carrot and stick, but you've got to get all of those right so that then they actually go through and do these exercises that are going to help them master the concepts. Okay, at this point, I want to go back and I want to talk about the in-system features that we have related to how students cheat and what we can do inside of our system. So you might have remembered when I went into the instructor academic preferences, we talked about in-assignment deterrents. Here they are. This is the current user who's logged in. Here is a tracking ID that is specific to this user on this assignment. So if someone wants to take a picture or a screen capture and post to Chegg, they're going to need to black out that information, or we're going to be able to immediately lead straight back to them. Now, here's the bad news for that student, and it really has bitten a lot of people starting last spring semester. There is a hidden watermark right here. It's one color value off of white, not visible to the naked eye. But if you take a screen capture, let me come over here and show you what this looks like. If you take a screen capture and you black out the username and the tracking ID, that watermark right there can easily be revealed by instructors using Paint or Photoshop. There's a little 4-step process that you can go to take that screen capture and do a color replace of the one color value off of white. And this is what it looks like when it's revealed. So there's an added feature that is a deterrent. I still don't think that it's our most powerful deterrent. And that's due to the fact that once students know about it, they have a way to bypass it. So the most powerful feature that we have is the tracking via random values and random phrases, because there's really nothing a student can do. So just to show you what this looks like, here's an exam question that we posted to Chegg, and it's that problem we just had open a minute ago, the basketball player shooting the free throws. However, what we recommend, this was for our recommendation to Kent State, was that they make it recognizable so that they know it's theirs. So instead of it just being a basketball player or a random team, it's actually the Golden Flashes, their mascot. And then randomization here, there's all the team members that are on their team. And then of course the numbers are randomized also. So this is what it looks like when you post a problem up, and you can actually see this when you go and you do a Google search, but you don't even have to go all the way through to Chegg or Yahoo Answers. When you search for your problem statement inside of Google, this is what the results look like. You are presented with enough information here, like you can see this. It says last game of the season, Jeremiah Hernandez, the velocities, and all of these are available. The simple step that you take inside of Expert TA is you come over to randomize variables and phrases. You choose the assignment in question, Exam 2 Kent State. You go through and you choose the problem. And now, what's the person? Jeremiah Hernandez. It is the last game of the season. And I don't know what the, let me look at this. I don't know what the value was. It was 3.5. Let's see if that's enough to get us there. So if I type in 3.5 right here, it tells me the one student who had all of those values. Now, of course, for the purposes of this presentation, we had to do a mock-up to where it was internal. We can't show real students. So of course, this was just an exercise to demonstrate that. This is now at the disposal of instructors, and we just want to make sure, I'm going to close out here on these thoughts, the recipe for all of this. And what you have to do is you have to make your problems recognizable. So this is the golden flashes and the specific names of the players. You do have to go through and take that step of searching for your problems. Now, when you find those, at least inside of the Expert TA system, we give you a mechanism that allows you to search and find out who that student is. But if you're not on Expert TA system, that's fine. Our free offline tool will help, and you're all smart people. You could come up with a way to do this also. I think I mentioned earlier that if you have 20 students, you probably don't even need an automated tool. You can just flip through and match the numbers up visually. So this is something that is your most powerful strategy. The final statement is you have to make sure your students know that you're doing this. Walk them through this, just like I have to you right now. Show them that you know how to find this, and just let them know that it's not worth it, that if they post it, that you're going to be able to find out who they are. And then when you do, they're going to feel indemnified unless you actually enforce those penalties. This, I mentioned at the beginning, is not hypothetical. This works. We have seen this work, and this is why we have a quote here from Dr. Andrew Brandt. This and other techniques actually work against having students post problems out to Chegg and be solved. Okay, the standard cost for Expert TA is $32.50 per semester. We've got quarter pricing that's less, and then we cap out at $65 for introductory physics. So if students take more than 2 semesters, once they've paid in $65, they're not going to be asked to pay anything else. We have some additional subjects. If you have colleagues in other departments, they can look on our website and see our $35 rather than $32.50, where we offer a few more features like the e-textbook. Instructors are going to be able to build out their own basic questions, and you're going to be able to do LMS integration with a number of platforms. And you're also going to be able to do with us, if you're interested, digital publishing of things like labs, lecture notes, and other things like that, where you can incorporate checkpoint questions. Okay, the problem authoring, we did put the poll out at the beginning, and a number of you said that you were interested in that, and enough of the same people said that they were able to go overtime a little bit, that's where we're going to spend the time after questions here going into it. I would say that if you're one of those folks who cannot stick around, please watch the recording of the webinar that we post so that you can get your preview of the authoring tool. It's going to be abbreviated, probably 5 to 7 minutes. And then later, maybe later this month, maybe a month from now, we're going to do an in-depth webinar where we really reveal the problem authoring tool and we make it available to the masses. So at this point, let's hold off on looking at the problem authoring tool, and let's open up to questions. So I'd ask Jack Cameron to come in and to share any questions that we've received during the course of the presentation today. What do you have, Jack?
Yeah, we've had a few questions come in, and some about additional costs associated with some of the features you've shown today. So I'll go ahead and answer that. The most recent one was about if the secure testing platform is an additional cost. And the answer is no. If you're a user of the Expert TA system for online homework, that is bundled into that capability. And that's the same with using the lockdown browser for secure exams, as well as accessing the problem authoring tool in the future. All of that is included when you use Expert TA as the online homework platform. Another question we've had come in is about videos in the system, and if we have any videos available. Jeremy, I'll let you answer that one.
We do have videos available. We make my way over to our website. If you're interested in getting more information about these under our products, you can see physics video series as the 6th menu item. And I can just talk briefly about these. We went into a publishing agreement with 2 professors, Amaya Kolakar, who brought the flipped or studio-based classroom to Auburn University, and Chris Dustin, who did the same at Merrimack. And what we did was took their very large collection of videos that were meant to be lecture replacements for the full flipped classroom studio-based physics, and then we upgraded those. They were drawing on tablets, and we turned those all into vector animations with typeset math. You can read about the authors here, and if you're interested in getting access to all of the videos, one of the things that we can do is set you up with a trial account. And let me see if I can come back here to the main class management area. And I believe that I have at least one. Yes, our Physics 1 video series. I think this is for the algebra-based offering. We could, in your trial account, get you access to this same link so that you could go through and you could sample all of the videos that we have to get a sense of what they're like regarding the look and feel and the content that's included. For Physics 1 and Physics 2, we have both algebra-based and calculus-based offerings that are used at Auburn for full replacement of lectures, so the collection is quite comprehensive.
Okay, we've also had another basic question come in just about LMS integration and Expert TA. I'll answer that. Expert TA does offer integration with Canvas, Blackboard, D2L, and Moodle. That provides single sign-on for students, as well as the automatic syncing of grades for you. So you'll have those grades pop right back into those previously mentioned LMS systems. Additionally, we've had some other questions come in. Let's see. One question we've had is, will my authored questions be protected by the web crawler you guys run? And Jeremy, I'll let you talk about that in regards to our academic integrity tool suite.
Absolutely. Any questions that you put into the Expert TA system, in the future, there's going to be 2 ways that you can do those. You can specify that you'd like for those problems to only be available for you or you and your colleagues, or you can offer those up to be shareable so that instructors at other institutions can use those if they like. So I just wanted to point that out. You still own the copyright to any problems that you author, but the ability to share and have an ecosystem is something that we're really interested in creating. Now, as far as the protection of those, any questions that are authored, no matter what you specify as to share or not share, we are going to add those in so that our web crawler is looking for them. And then when we make our reports over to Chegg and these other places where for years now, I think most of you have heard, we submit at least once a week to Chegg all of the problems that we find, and they do take those problems down. We do that on behalf of all of our other instructors who are partnering with us and putting their questions in. So yes, we will protect your content.
Okay, our next question is the system compatible with Chromebooks? And then a follow-up question was that, is there a video monitoring service for exams, or is it compatible with like ProctorU or Proctorio? Maybe you could just talk a little bit about the system and what devices it can be used on, Jeremy.
I should have mentioned this earlier. I almost always do when I'm presenting free body diagrams. Everything that you saw there, dragging forces around and angle labels being updated, all that's done without Flash. We have avoided Java runtime and Flash at all costs. You can work all of our question types on Chromebooks, and you can do those on mobile devices such as Android or Apple's iOS. So this software that we have is going to work pretty much anywhere. And then the second part of your question, Jack, was related to Proctorio and ProctorU. And the answer to that is we have dozens of schools right now that use ProctorU and these other proctoring services with Expert TA. I'm a little bit mixed on that myself. Of course, many of you have seen articles about the privacy issue where you have 17-year-old freshman young ladies who are now being observed in their dorm room. So we don't really want to weigh in on that, but I will say that we are compatible with all of those. And one of the things that we're really trying to do, which I hope that you can see here from what we've done today with the random variable tracking, is we're trying to identify ways to deter cheating without having to be invasive when it comes to privacy. So I did want to add that asterisk. Yes, we're compatible with them. It's your choice as to whether you want to use those and where you stand on the privacy and invasion of privacy issue.
Okay, great. I think those are the main questions we wanted to address publicly. We've been able to answer the others through chat. So I think that will likely wrap up the Q&A session. If there's any other questions that come in or you think of, please feel free to share those in the question tab and we'll address them.
I think we did get one. I think we got one for the OpenStax side. If you want to throw that to Courtney.
Yeah, Courtney, let's see. Yeah, okay, sorry, I missed that. So yeah, two questions actually. It's where can I find other resources developed by OpenStax, lecture slides, images, etc. And are instructors able to get free hard copies of textbooks for review? So those are the two questions related to OpenStax.
Sure. So for the first question, if you go to openstax.org, all 43 of our books are there online. And each book does come with ancillary resources that are free, like some of the examples I gave earlier. So to access those, you just need to create an account. We do verify that you're an instructor. That's a pretty quick process now because we have an integration with a software that does most of that for us. But we do that to try to keep things like test banks and solutions out of the hands of students. So you would just go to our website, sign up for an account, and then you'll be able to go to any of our books, click on instructor resources, and download any of those resources to use. And then the second question, can you remind me of the second question again, Jack?
Yeah, it's about instructors getting access to a free hard copy of textbooks for review of their own.
Yes, so since we're a nonprofit, we try not to do free print comp copies because that price is usually passed on to the student. So we encourage people to check out the books online because they are available in their entirety online. But if there's a holdup to you or your department considering adopting, please, without having a print copy, please do email us and we'll see if we can work out something that's more useful to you. You can always email us at info@openstax.org and we can talk that out with you.
Awesome, great. Yeah, that will do it for the Q&A session now, and we can wrap this up and move forward.
Okay, this is the problem authoring environment. Here I have access to many books, but I've narrowed it down just to the introductory physics book. And I'm just going to author something that is a problem that we saw today in the demonstration. So I'm going to put it in the application of Newton's laws area, and I'll simply click on new problem. I'm going to add one step that doesn't really fit with the problem, just to demonstrate a different question type we have. And so I'm going to make this be problem 5.3.5 webinar. Okay, so the problem in question I actually have pulled up here. You would normally have some work done already where you've written the problem in Word or you've got it in another system. I think I should mention also that if you've got a stockpile of problems that are in Canvas or Moodle or in one of the other competing online homework platforms and you need those in Expert TA so that you don't have to say goodbye to them, that's something that we can help out with, and normally we can automate that. You own the copyright to those problems, and it's just a matter of getting them into our system. It's not a case where you're going to have to recreate every single one of those manually. Here is the process of creating a new problem manually. So I'm just going to paste in the problem statement here, and it looks like I have a few random variables. So I've got a mass, and I'm going to say that that's between 30 and 50 with a step size of 0.5. It looks like there is a random variable theta, and I'm going to say that it's between 15 and 30 with a step size also of 0.5. And then I want to show you what a random phrase looks like. So I've got a block with a mass. Let's just say that block is going to be the random variable, and it can have options of block, crate, box, object, and so on. Okay, and then to make the controls here a little easier for me to use, I'm going to get the size of the screen down so my floating control's a little closer. Whoops, sorry about that. So now when I come down in here, you'll notice there's a floating control off to the side, and it's got lots of helpful things, including the random phrases and random words. So when I click here, I get block, and now I can insert it this way, and you can see there's double percents around that. And if I click here on this 46, click on random variables, I can click mass, and then now I can go over and grab this theta, and I've introduced some randomization to the problem. I can now browse and go find the images on my computer that are related to this. These are problems 535, and I've got one main image that will be loaded into my image carousel. And then I have a background for a free body diagram that I want to put in. To make this the main image, I can just drag it over. The reason though that it doesn't display here is that you're going to be able to have more than one main image, and the students will be able to use a right arrow and left arrow to scroll through that carousel, because sometimes you need more than one figure for a problem. Okay, I want to add my first step to this. So I can now click here and say that I want it to be a free body diagram. I can add that step, and you'll see how quickly we're going to be able to do this. I can edit the background image. I can put that in, and now I can go over and define all the forces that are associated with this. So I'm going to put in quite a few here, and I'm going to make an F1, F2, a normal force, an F sub G, acceleration and velocity. And at this point, I have all the forces and angles that are relevant. And now I've got an interface that's very similar to what you saw when we took this in the first place. I can add the correct forces, which we know that there are 4. I've got F1 at 180. I've got Fn at 90. I have Fg at 270. I have F2, and I can put it down in the right direction. I can get the balance the way that it's supposed to be. And then if I want to add an incorrect force like acceleration and state that acceleration, right, it is not a force, we'll just shorthand it for now. I can do that. This is how long it takes to create a free body diagram, assuming that you have the background image already created. I can now go and add a symbolic expression. So let's go and do that. That's listed as an equation here. I'll click add a step. Okay, and this is where I would probably go back over to my Word document and use the existing part statement and be able to paste this in. And you can see that I've got the floating control, which is still very helpful. So this is going to be sigma f, and then I can go to the HTML tags and say sub x, and that's going to show up now on the left-hand side of the equation here. And at this point, what I would do is I would just create the variables that I want students to have inside of the palette. So I'm going to put in an F1, an F2, an F sub G. I'm going to put in cosine of theta, sine of theta. And if I wanted to add dummy variables, items that they needed to look past, I could very easily do that. But at this point, I'm just going to leave this as the main variables that are needed, and I'll say save palette. I can now type in the correct answer with an interface that's similar to what students have when they're taking an assignment. F2 cosine theta minus F1, and I just say set as the correct answer. It does a little bit of math and it deconstructs it so that I can do some sophisticated things down below, but for now I'll just leave that as the basic. Now I can come in and put in anticipated answers like F2 sine theta minus F1, where there's a trig mistake. Our math engine's going to pick up on basic trig, but what if I want to say something very specific? Like, it's not the case here, but did you notice that the angle was measured from vertical? And I can now give some sort of credit for what would be appropriate if the student only had one try. And fairly quickly now, I have a problem. Let's save that and go look at what it's like in the preview area. And you can see that we've got ourselves a problem that's ready for students to take. And if I were to quickly put the elements in place and make the mistake, we're going to get that specific feedback that was added a second ago. Acceleration is not a force. If I remove, it's like I just removed the wrong one. So if I remove that acceleration and make this an F2, it still automatically has the feedback about the proportionality not being right. And then finally, if I get the proportionality, the relative magnitudes right, I've got a problem. This is going to be very powerful in the hands of instructors. And then the last one that I'd like to show is the advanced graphical. So let me continue editing. This is not going to make sense in the context of this problem, but I think you'll all get a kick out of it. So now I'm going to add a drag and drop. And before I do that, actually, I need to add a few more images. So I'll go out to this problem set and get from this one, maybe, a background image. I'll get a few of the other images that are created. This is a problem from the chapter on stability. Okay, so I have 3 additional images that I need. And now when I create part C as a drag and drop, you'll see how quick you're going to be able to do this. We've really spent a lot of time on making this interface intuitive. I can add a background in and choose this image. I'll go ahead and I'll just create this. So I'm adding several items here and I'm going to drag them out. This is where they would start when a student is first looking at the particular problem. So I've got my items here and I'm going to click on this first one and I'm going to label it as a stable equilibrium point. And you can see when I click save, the label shows up. There are also unstable equilibrium points. And then there's places where it wants to move right or left. So if I want to bring this arrow down here and then simply click Save Changes, and then the same thing for the arrow to the right, I need to actually click first on this item and click Save. Now I've got those base elements, but I actually need more than one of each. So I'll click on Stable, and notice how it says item ID is 3 right here. As I duplicate, you're going to see I just made 3 copies of this. I'm going to make 3 copies of each so that there's 4 total. Okay, and then I can click this button that says set this as the initial configuration that my students are going to see. And then finally, I'm going to move these things down. This is a stable equilibrium point. So is this. These at the top are both unstable. From here, it would move to the right, as it would here. And then this would move to the left. I can click Create Buckets from Items. And now there's a table down below that shows a tabulated form of all of the answers, which item and which bucket. Some of the buckets weren't placed quite right. So I could actually unlock that, make some adjustments for the aesthetics, get things where I want, reset the configuration, and then my problem's ready to go. So if I just click save, and then I click continue, and then we go over and preview this problem, it's going to reload. It has part C now. And I've got this drag and drop labeling where I can move the answers, the items into the correct place. And why don't we just do that so it can show us a confirmation of the correct answer. But we also have the ability to say things like this. Well, instead of putting right there, if the student put this as moving left there as moving to the right, I can say set a partial credit pairing. It's added into the table down here. I can specify some sort of a credit or deduction, and I can give feedback associated with that particular item being placed in this wrong bucket. And this is a very powerful mechanism now. It's going to let you put a lot of really great conceptual questions in front of your students. As the closeout, just to give you an example of some of these, I want to go over to our introductory physics landing page. Once the page loads, I'm going to scroll down to advanced graphical, which are right here, interactive question types. This animation cycles, and it shows you everything from drag and drop labeling, which we're seeing here, to ranking questions and some other very interesting conceptual things. I think this is going to demonstrate feedback here in just a moment. And I want you to see this next problem where it is a ranking question for e-fields, and it's different configurations, and you've got to find the smallest magnitude of the net field to the largest. And this is, so this is an example of a ranking question. There's a lot of power here to these specific question types, and we're going to provide information that hopefully gives you ideas about how these can be used. The last thing you're going to see right here, and then we're going to close out the webinar, is that sometimes you can have dummy buckets. Sometimes you can have buckets that have more than one item. Some only have one. With these ranking questions of different configurations, the students really have to put thought into the fundamentals and be able to apply those very judiciously to answer questions like this. And so you're going to have these available in our system, and then you're going to have the ability to create those as well. I'm glad that we took a few extra minutes for those of you who decided to stick around so that you could see a preview of what's to come. When we have the formal webinar, we'll create a lot of questions, and we'll talk about ideas and give you a playbook that you can get started off with. Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate everyone's time. It's been very productive, and again, your interest in Expert TA is great. Any feedback that you have to provide to us, there's a survey that's going to be sent to you via email. Please tell us what you like, what you think that we could strengthen, or what you think we could focus on. All this information we really take seriously, and we'll try to act on that and make the system better per your recommendations. Courtney, did you have anything that you wanted to add as we close out?
Sure, I just wanted to echo what you said, Jeremy. Thanking you guys for spending your time with us today. And I hope you found something valuable in what we shared. Please always feel free to reach out to us at OpenStax or to Expert TA with questions, and we're happy to talk with you.
Okay, thanks again, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.